again. You know, I've been to about 6 or 7 countries, and I've had about 12, 13 town halls. But this one, I know at least 3 people here who have traveled mainly with me. I think Ogie has gone nearly everywhere. My DG has gone most places. My brother has gone most places, and they will testify that what we see here, when Joe first came in Rambag, so you give an idea of what we see here. You know, guys, I'm truly grateful. You know, more than anything else, this tells me why. Tells me truly why we have to succeed and we have to deliver for the good people of Edo State. Tells me why. You know, part of this is diaspora waka. You know what scared our people in diaspora the most? You know what scared them the most? So each time I kept telling them, you guys come back home, if you come on holiday, if you come on holiday twice, you spend $2,000 or $3,000, you inflate our economy. They were looking at me that kidnappers, this. I was looking at them, I said, so we'll come back to the manifesto. The state is relatively safe now, but we'll make it even safer. No, they were just looking at me. I need your money, bring your money back to Edo State, you come and invest, you give us money. Some of you are annoyed, you don't want to build house again. Because you send money to your younger brother, he chop your money, don't vex. You know, all those things they didn't understand. You know what they understood? God then gave me a brainwave. I said, the way you guys are going, nearly all of you end up in old people's home. You know, that was when the scales fell off. I said, you know, in America, it's not that your kids don't love you. It's just the system. When you can't drive and you can't cook and you can't make your bed again, they take you to old people's home. And that's it. So that's why you have a duty to come back home to make home good. So when you are not able to do those things, you can come back home. Your children at home, a nephew, a niece, a school, at least somebody will take care of you till the day God calls you. We don't have concept of old people's home. Because when I said that, and they all started listening. I know some of us here don't understand that concept because by God's grace, we live old and long. And we'll stay with our family kids and we'll enjoy their company. Those are one of the advantages of being a true Nigerian. You cannot buy it for anything, no matter where you go in the world. That is why we must make Nigeria great and good for everybody to come back home. Having said that, let me start by thanking the convener, Chief Big Man Osarodion. I'm truly grateful. Everywhere around the world we've been to, we've had great men and women who have given of themselves, of their time, and of their resources. And I truly thank you, Chief Osarodion, and the committee for AI and Ogie. I thank you. You know, it's not easy for people to give their time and their money because they believe in something they have not touched or felt. It's not easy. That's why the concept of believing in Jesus Christ is not easy. Because when people don't touch or feel, it's hard to believe. But I thank you because there's a belief in me and what people perceive I can do. So people have given of their time and resources. So I thank you. I thank Kingsley, and I'll leave it at that. I also thank the planning committee and the funding committee. It's not easy for people to pass with money in these days. When 3 tomatoes cost 1,000 naira, very hard to part with money. Before I didn't know the cost of tomato, but by the time I started going around Edo State and talking to market women, I wonder how women cope. I truly wonder. Because I know us men haven't really increased the money we give you as chop money every month. And the men say they still want to eat 3 meats. So the women got smart, so they cut 1 meat into 3. So finally, I thank all of you guys, truly. Guys, and when I use guys generically, guys and guys, I thank you all. You know, many of you just managed to get out of church, had a quick lunch and dashed here. And even those who didn't go to church, today is your kind of just relaxed day and start recalibrating for the week. But you've given it up for us. I won't say for me, I'll say for us. And I truly, truly thank you. And I will try and, you see, my brother pastor warned me that he talked too long. Because he's been with me, and I try to just dumb down and not talk too long. And I know he's paying me back. Because I used to tell him, you preach too long. So I know he's paying me back. Because I tell you, what are you preaching for 1 hour? Something that you can say in 10 minutes. So I know you're trying to get back at me. But seriously, guys, so I'm going to try and run through this very quickly. But we have a story to tell. Osarodion, myself, and the team of young men and women that have been guiding us in the last 10 months. And the story is simply this. Nearly all of you here have been to school with people from outside this country. And I know that you dust them in class. So you're in front, they're at the back. But they have a first world, or they have a first world environment, and you have a third world environment. So that's contradiction number 1. Contradiction number 2. In America, the Nigerians are the first most celebrated immigrants. I thought it would be the Chinese or the Indians or even the Jews. But it's the Nigerians. The Nigerians are first in everything they do. Everything. So, how come in Nigeria here, we tolerate what we tolerate? We tolerate no water, no light, no road. We are still going to get to no air to breathe, and we'll tolerate it. How come we have all these capacities and all these resources that God has given us, and we tolerate what we tolerate? I was talking about tomatoes. You know, I nearly fell over when I was in Auchi market, and this woman told me 4 little tomatoes were 1,000 naira. And I just stood there to ask her, how do you survive? And she said, when I eat on Tuesday, because of my kids, I don't eat again until Thursday. Like, it's only at weekends that I eat on consecutive days. And that's the Nigeria we all live in. In Nigeria that since 1956 has produced so much oil, even if we lived only on resources from oil, that it could have created 7 divides. So, what are we all going to do about it? Before I go into my slides, let me acknowledge the presence here of my partner's wife, Mrs. Osarodion Ogie. Please, madam. Thank you. No, I knew I had to come here today. You know, now I have handlers, people that tell me what to do when I wake up in the morning. The chief handler is here, sitting down here. So that people don't mock him, I won't call his name. But you know him, my DG. He has taken over my life. He and the party chairman. They tell me what to do for when I wake. They tell me when to wake up. I went to sleep. So they told me we couldn't do this. There was no time. And I said it's impossible. We must do it. There's so many things happening in Benin today, so we just all divided up. So, but I knew I had to come and talk to us in Lagos because I've been here for nearly 40 years. So us and me. And if I didn't end my diaspora here, then I haven't done the work I needed to do. So thank you. I acknowledge my DG, I acknowledge my DDG, I acknowledge director, and I acknowledge my brother. Majority. Before I run into trouble, I haven't even started work, and the House of Assembly majority leader, Ogie, I bow. I acknowledge the majority leader of the House of Assembly, and I acknowledge all my other brothers here present, and I'm looking at 3 of them, and all of my bosses. Thank you. So, Edo State, where are we? And I want to contextualize something. You know, Edo State today has 50 times the resources Singapore had in 1961 when it started its journey. 50 times at least. Singapore had only pigs and the fact that it's weighted by the water. That's all it had. And then, of course, it had the brains of men and women. Edo State has the brains of men and women. It's the heartbeat of Nigeria, logistically. And then it has massive, massive resources, great soil, and potentiality for creating a first world environment. So why are we where we are? That just punched ourselves with the rest of Nigeria and accepting the things we are accepting. Why don't we just pull ourselves out as Edo State, move ourselves as quickly as possible into the first world, and then allow the other states, pulled up by us, peer pressured by us, to also develop at some rate, so that ultimately our great country finally develops. Because that's the path we see. And that's the only path for Nigeria. Nigeria is going to be state-led. It's not going to be federal-led. Let me repeat myself. Nigeria is going to be state-led. It's not going to be federal-led. Period. And ultimately, one day, we'll all come to the realization that we need to change our constitution. We need to. We need to go to a constitution, even if it still stays presidential federal, but it needs to be closer to the contents of a 1963 constitution, where the involvement of the federal government in our lives, in our villages, is minimal. How does a federal road pass in front of your village? The guy who's federal minister will never go, he doesn't care what happens to that road. So when we are crying about the road, it doesn't concern him. That road should be local government or a state road. Why is it a federal road? So let's go back to that constitution. When all the federal government did was currency, immigration, foreign affairs, a few things. And the rest was left to us, the people, to determine for ourselves how we wanted to live. How do they live determine for us? Far away. Far away. How do they determine for us how we want to live? They have no feelings for us because they don't know what we're feeling, what we're suffering. But we'll get there one day. But in the interim, what should Edo State do? Very quickly. Guys, move the slide, please. You know, Edo State, the Benin particularly, the Benin, they were technologically strong and creative way before the white man. So we had street lights, we had the grid arrangement for our towns, and we built that moat. People talk about the Chinese wall. The moat was more a technological fit than the Chinese wall. So why are we where we are today? Next slide, please. With the kind of resources and the creativity we have. Next slide. Why are we where we are today? Can you go to the next slide? The one that has the photographs, yes. And I want to use this as a reflection of you guys in this hall. It's a reflection of you guys in this hall. Great Edo men and women. And all of you here are reflected here. And all of them here are reflected there. How many people here know Anthony Anahoro? Or know of? Okay, if you don't even know him personally, know of. Is there anybody here? Okay, let me put it. Is there anybody here that doesn't know of Anthony Anahoro? One of the finest and most distinguished parliamentarians ever produced in Africa. He was the first one to move the motion for the independence of Nigeria in 1953 at under 30 years old. A true Uromi man. I had the privilege of associating with him for many years. And I don't think I have met a more brilliant mind. And then Charlie Poppy. My daughter taught me about him. I didn't hear about him before. But guys, what these guys are doing in the creative sector, it's incredible. And we have so many Edo State citizens doing this and more. And then those who watch football, they know about Victor Osimhen. Those of us that were supporting Manchester United wanted to buy him, we couldn't afford him. And then some don't know, but there's one of the best medical minds. Medical journals used to cite the fecundity of his mind. Tiami Ubelo Osage, one of the finest gynecologists ever produced. A proud Benin man. And Rema. I met Rema. I'd met him before when he hadn't hammered. So I just see him, I just look at him with one eye. I met Rema last weekend and I shook him with 2 hands and 2 eyes. You know, it's just incredible what our guys are doing abroad. He had a concert in Detroit, and that concert was packed. There was no standing space. None. It was incredible. And I kept thinking, but this is a Benin boy. This is an Edo boy. See what the whole place was jam-packed. And I kept, I'm a Nigerian, I'm a Nigerian, I'm a Nigerian. That's how I was walking. I was so proud to be in there. And then, many of you probably don't know because he died 40 years ago. How many people remember Festac 77? Who are those that remember? The brain and the mind and the soul of Festac 77, Neraboemopai. Great guy, great artist, creative mind, first class. House of Dorsey Road in Benin there. His son is here, but I won't tell him to get up because he will be shy. His son is also a rebel. But one of the most fantastic creative minds the world has seen. If his son doesn't know how rich he is, I won't tell you where they live because I don't want people to go and attack him tomorrow. If he sells one of those paintings or sculptures, he's a billionaire in Naira immediately. Incredible mind. And many of you know Ike, and Ike is a representative of many of us professionals here. Yes. The things he's done, the things he's achieved. And many of you here have even done more. But I just had to close my eyes and pick one of us. And then, how many people know Victor, the artist? How many people know Victor? Yeah. You remember when Victor first started, he was begging all of us to show his painting. Now you can't talk to Victor. You can't even buy his painting. And then Osarodion, she was one of the first appointees by Biden into the White House. A Ogie girl, she's a girl from my village. Health advisor in the White House. A good girl. She got tired of working in the White House. She went back to school to go and do her PhD. How many people would walk out of working in Asue and go and do PhD? And then there's George Mafidon, one of the greatest engineering minds the world has seen. And then Asue, understated, but she can act anywhere in the world. How many people know Kamaru Usman, the last guy there? Okay, let me move this chair so we can see Kamaru. How many of you know Kamaru? Okay. You know what he does? He's a champion in what he does. If you see Kamaru, please run. Don't fight with him. So I just use this to just give us an idea of the greatness of the Edo person. An idea of the greatness of the Edo person. So why are we where we are? Next slide, please. This is the one I want to show, but I don't want to show. And if we look at it very closely, it shows us where we are today. And it's not fully reflected. Because where it says that food inflation is 40% or 41%, those who go to the market know it's closer to 150%, and in some cases 200%. 300%, okay. But let's take MPS figures. Don't let's say statisticians are lying. But those who truly go to the market know that the food inflation is closer to 300%. The general inflation rate, they say, is 34%. That can't be true. We all pitch every day. The poverty rate, 72%. I think it's much higher than that, too, from what I see. Nigerians are poor. And we don't know how poor we really are. And we really must drag ourselves from this poverty. And then the one that pains me as much as any other is this exchange rate. Because there was a time when if I took 500 naira to the bank, I got $1,000. I know it's hard for people to conceive. I'll take 500 naira to the bank and I will get $1,000. How many people remember that time? Those are the old men. You take 500 naira to the bank man will give you $1,000. See what I exchange rate today. To get $1, you have to count nearly 2,000 naira, and it's getting worse. Nigeria has the highest out-of-school children per capita in the world. We have about nearly 20 million. Nothing in Edo State. We're one of the states that has the lowest figure, but it's still high. One out-of-school child is too high. Then can you believe it that in the whole world, out of 10 women that die from going to give birth, 3 are Nigerians? In 2024, when I had a colleague, when I was really a smoking lawyer, smoking, working 50 hours a day, just when we entered, smoke coming out of our ears and our noses. I had this colleague of mine, she would have a chat in the evening, and she'd be back negotiating with us the next evening. I couldn't believe it. And then can you imagine, is that same world where in Nigeria, 3 of our women die out of 10? And then the infant mortality rate nearly 60%. And we're one of the most corrupt countries in the world. So why are we where we are? And why are we Nigerians accepting what we have been served? Why? And the story I have to tell you is that in Edo State, we can't afford to accept we want to be served. That's my story. And I think I can go and sit down after saying that. Abi? I can go and sit down. We shouldn't accept what we want to be served. Some want to serve us what they can never accept. We, the people of Edo State, we're moving to another level. Edo State are enlightened people. Edo State people, forward-looking people. Edo State people are strong, they're courageous, they're creative. Edo State people are visionary. Edo State people love one another. So why are we where we are? Osarodion and myself want to tell a different story. We want to tell the world that the Nigerian, the black man, can create a first world environment and govern transparently, with integrity, accountably, and be accessible to his people, so that we are running a proper government for the benefit and sake of our people. That is the story. You know, when you are flowing, that's when the microphone messes up. So that's our story. We want to show that the Nigerian can do well in Nigeria, not just the Nigerian doing well outside Nigeria. We want to show that the environment can be structured such that the capability to do well is first class. That's all we want to show. And the foundation has been laid by this government today. Many things have changed. 8 years ago, the revenue for the state was about 24 billion. Last December, it was about 65. Today, it's closer to 80 billion. That means that the revenue collection monthly is about nearly 18 billion. 8 years ago, it was barely 4 billion or 3 billion. So a lot of things have happened. There's been a lot of transformational work in the public service. The Edo State Civil Service is probably the best civil service in Nigeria today. We picture on Ogie Center. And it's fully digitalized. There's no paper. I don't know any other civil service in Nigeria where they don't carry files from room to room to room to room. In Edo State, you move things on your iPad, on your laptop. When the governor sits on his chair, he sees his whole government. From seeing kids at school, how many kids came to school and how many teachers are working, to seeing the balance sheet of the state. Just sitting down and pressing his iPad. So that's why when this conversation about minimum wage came up, it was easy for Edo State to calculate very quickly what they could pay and then say we can pay this. Because everything fully digitalized. If you can't work on your computer or your iPad, you can't work in Edo State, period. You apply for work in Edo State, you don't need to know anybody, you just apply on a portal, and it comes out at the end of it, accepted or not accepted, period. And many people that have gone through this process will tell you that they didn't know anybody. And if you get a first class, you're employed in Edo State automatically. Get a first class from anywhere. So meritocracy is back on the board in Edo State. And wherever there's meritocracy, there will be progress, and there will be good governance, period. And then, what about education, Edo Best? 7 years ago, Edo State was number 28 in Nigeria as regards primary education. Today, I think we're number 2, second to Anambra, and we're about to dust them. And it's also a function of visionary leadership. The curriculum has changed. 8 years ago, a teacher couldn't spell. A teacher couldn't even recite the alphabet correctly. Teachers have today been trained. Teachers work with their pads. Curriculum has been changed. And our children's minds have changed. Our children look forward to going to school every day. And then, what about the economic programs? Those who are in the local, who are in the Kobaha, that local government. The rest of us, the other 17 local governments are upset. Because being by the gas pipeline, it's changed the dynamics of that local government. And everyone, a couple of other local governments are picking up. So the IGR from those areas are shot up incredibly. And then we have the Chinese village. Edo State is probably one of the few places where there are not as many Chinese as in other places when they set up industry. We have many more indigenes working there than Chinese. So the whole state is different. The whole state is getting ready to take off. A solid foundation has been laid. It's like wanting to build a 100-story building and you've gone down and you're ready to take off. In such circumstances, what do? Do you pick who will help you take off, or are you indifferent? Do you pick lights, or do you pick what looks opaque? Do you pick up, or do you pick down? When it's clearly obvious to you, why are you thinking about somebody's short, somebody's tall, somebody's Christian, somebody's Muslim, somebody's this, somebody's that? What you should be thinking about is who can change the lives of our people for good. That's the question, and that's the answer. So, we're coming very close to September 21. Many of you have your PVCs, and I hope you've transferred it. You have time to think through what it is you want. Next slide, please. Next slide. That's the role of government, creating a good and secure life for its people. And that's what Osarodion and myself promise all of you in this room and all the good people of Edo State, that we will do everything within our power to create a good and secure life in Edo for Edo State citizens and all those who live in Edo State. Create an Edo state where no man or woman is oppressed. An Edo state where we're all free to go and come as we like and to engage in whatever we choose to engage in under the law. An Edo state where creativity will always, always, always be first in everything we do. That's the Edo state we want to create. We see a path. Next slide. I made a commitment to the guys in diaspora, and I will make that same commitment to you. We make this commitment that we will run a first world government fully transparent, fully accessible. We'll make ourselves accessible to you guys. We will have town hall meetings like this often, in smaller groupings, not even as large as this. We'll go around the state as often as possible, talking to people, finding out what more we need to do, what we can do to help. You know, we must not stay disconnected from our people. One of the things I keep telling people, you know that Nigeria is probably the only country, and I've been scratching my head, and I've been to many countries, where if you're in the office of the president, you don't see the citizens of the country. You only see peacocks and the people that work in the villa. That's the only thing you see. So from day one, the president, once he moves into his office, is disconnected from the people of Nigeria. And the only people that own the president are the courtiers, maybe 7 or 8 or 9 people. There's no other president. If they stand in their office and look out of the window, they see the people of their country. So they can feel the suffering of the people of their country. So we make a promise and a commitment to you all that we will work and strive for the people of Edo State, and we will ensure that the Edo State, in as quick a time as possible, becomes a first world environment. Next slide. We also want to make a promise to those who come to invest in the state. Because for me, all of you in this room, I'm going to drag all of you back to Edo State. All of you. You are going to bring your resources, you are going to bring your capabilities, and you are going to bring your money to Edo State. Even if you spend some here, please bring some to Lagos, to Edo State. Yes, because some of you already invested here, some of you will still invest here. But please bring, okay, let's start by maybe 1/3, 2/3, half, then move 2/3, 1/3. But please bring your money to Edo State. The same thing I told the guys in diaspora. Instead of coming to Nigeria and spending all your money in Lagos, just fly straight to Edo first and spend the change in Lagos or wherever else you like. So we will create an enabling environment, which is one of the reasons why I want to do this job. I will respect investors and those who bring money into our state, because those are the people that are creating jobs and those are the people that are paying taxes by which we can develop infrastructure. So I must respect investors. One of the pain of our country is the refusal to respect adequately and treat with the utmost respect those who bring their money into this environment. And when we treat people that bring their money into this environment with such disdain, how do we expect other people to bring their money into this environment when our money by itself cannot develop this environment? Those countries that have developed on other people's money because they respected those other people. We continue believing that we must show disrespect to everybody, but they will still come. It's strange. In Edo State, we will respect everybody. Once everybody acts within the law, we'll give them the fullest respect. And we will create that enabling environment that makes sure you keep coming, and you keep coming, and you keep investing. Next slide. Next slide. And we're going to move very quickly now. Our agenda. We have like a 5-pillar agenda. Call it 5 pillars, 5 areas, 5 structures. Security, the well-being of our people. We are concerned about the well-being of our people. How they will eat, how the kids will go to school, the hospitals. The suffering in the land is much. People still have to go to the stream 4-5 times before 6 a.m. before the house can start. It must stop. And then the economy and governance, and then the environment. And let's quickly go to security. Next slide, please. If we don't get security right in Edo State, every other thing we want to do won't work. Even the simple thing, which I think is the lowest hanging fruit, are diasporans coming back home on holiday. They won't come. Because for me, if we can create an environment where diasporans come back home on holiday, diaspora remittances into Nigeria through banking channels about 20 billion. Nearly half of that is from Edo State, a big chunk. And that's not considered, oh boy, they travel, let me give $100 to somebody. So really, diaspora remittances are closer to $30 billion. Nearly half of that coming into Edo State. Now imagine if those people come home on holiday, and then they bring a friend, and then tourists start coming. You know, we can just make sure Edo is secure, and we don't need to work again. Because the state will run by itself, using this money and these resources from all of these other parties. So it is fundamental that we make Edo State secure. The state has a security trust fund. We will resuscitate it. We will ensure that all of you here donate into that security trust fund. We'll get as much as we can get in so that we can buy first world equipment. How do you say you kidnap people, you take them into Ubiaja or Ewato or Ewohimi forest and we can't find them? How can you kidnap 20 people in Nigeria in 2024 and nobody knows where you took them to and they're inside the forest? How? With all the technology that the world has today? So that must change. Luckily, the present government has already started this work, and the situation room in Benin covers the whole of Benin. But we need money to cover the whole of the state. If you're in a situation room in Benin, you can see from all the 5 entry points into Edo State, you know who's coming in. You see every street in Benin, you see every house in Benin, every. So we must replicate that all over the states. So once we're able to replicate that and we have the right kind of drones and the right kind of technology, nobody will pick somebody up and enter the forest and say we don't know where they are. It's not possible. And we will equip the security services that work in our states. We will support them. The key is that anybody that enters Edo State, if they want to move around at 3 a.m., at 10 a.m., if they want to do whatever they want to do within the law, they will be free and happy to do it. And that's the Edo State we want to create. And that's the Edo State we will create by God's grace. And it's doable. You know, this thing has happened in Nigeria before. At that time, even with no technology. You know, there was a time in Cross River State, you know, there was nearly zero crime. Even the militants used to come to Calabar to spend their money, but they didn't commit offenses in Calabar. And I know we can do it in Edo State and we will do it even better. So that's the first thing. And you know, if we get this security right, then we will truly hammer. Because God has put us in a place of natural advantage with natural resources and with great human resources. What scares everybody is just this feeling. And it's a perception today. Because if you look at the relativity of safety of states in Nigeria, Edo State is probably one of the best. But there's this perception, a throwback to young days. And we have to do something about the perception and also the reality. So we have a safe Edo State, adopting the best technology, working through communities. And I have a long-term agenda for the safety of Edo State, which I want to say quickly here. Long-term is the longest-term agenda, but we must get that right. You know, in my mind, I cannot conceive how I will take a gun and just shoot somebody. It's not possible. I cannot conceive how a young man or young boys drag a young girl and go and rape her. It's not possible. Why? What kind of upbringing did you have as a child? What were the values that your parents instilled in you? If we parents do what we're supposed to do, there's many things these children that do what they say they do will never do. It's impossible. No matter how many tramadol they take, it can never happen. So parents, we have caused the problem. Because if we had brought our kids right, there's always a line every child draws. A child grows up as a slightly mischievous person, but they get to a line that they draw, which they never pass. Because at the back of their minds is, what will my parents say if they hear I am here? So with the parents, that's my long-term plan in Edo State. Because then the things they say our kids do will not be done. Cultism, all those funny things, they won't be done. It won't happen. It just will not happen. And fathers, you have a major role to play. You can't just leave your wives to try and bring up kids. You must play your part. Children must be disciplined. When I was growing up, if I went next to her and I misbehaved, the mother of that house beat me, and I was begging her not to tell my own mother, because she would beat me, my mother would beat me. If the teacher beat me in class, the teacher would beat me, and if my mother knows, she will beat me. We have to get back to the days where our children understand right from wrong, good from bad. And you know that if we bring up our children like that, that is a long-term plan for security for the state. A long-term plan. So I'm begging us parents, let's abdicate our responsibilities and our duties. As we bring up our children in school and in other things, we must instill, and you will get the early warning signal when your kids start going wrong. My brother is here. When we're coming back from secondary school, we were more concerned to make sure our suitcase was clean of any other person's property, even if we had lost all our own property. But don't bring one pencil that has somebody else's name that's not yours. My parents will beat, my mother particularly, she will beat nonsense out of your body. And you can't tell her it's only one pencil. Next slide, please. You know, one of the things that hurts me the most and has affected and worried me the most going round Edo State is this level of poverty. People can't eat. People can't pay medical bills. I went to Jatu the other day, the market, where 4 trees fell around the same time. And I went to see those who were in hospital. I saw 2 or 3 people in hospital. The others had discharged themselves. When I traced their homes and I went there, you will see people, splinters on their legs, they'll put stick to tie rope on their leg. And I'd say, why are you at home? You should be in hospital. They couldn't afford, even government hospitals that were not charging except for drugs, they couldn't stay. So we must create an environment where we take maximum benefit of the insurance scheme we have created, make that insurance scheme work for all of us, so that the poorest of the poor, the elderly and the very young can benefit from it and get good first-class medical service. I've talked about the schools, but we must do more for secondary schools. I was talking to a group of guys earlier today, and I said, you know, the missionaries and the Muslim Society and things have asked for their schools back. Those who have the capability and the resources, we'll give them their school back, and we will set the standards that they will maintain. For me, the old students of Government College Umuahia have set the bar. For those who know that school, they shut it down for a couple of years, and if you go there now, it's like as if you're in a first world university, a secondary school. The old students took charge. So those who have the capability, who can adopt schools, who can support the government with schools, the government has a responsibility for the curriculum and for training many of the teachers. But we must get it right. Why are people jackpine? If you look at the majority of people that are jackpine, the number one reason is to be able to create an environment for their children that will ensure their children grow into good citizens. The first being education. So, if we cure education problem here, many of the people that japa won't japa. So we must get education right. We must get health right. and we will. Not just we will get education and health right. All those infrastructure that surround a good life. Water. The cost of revamping the water system in Edo State today, conservatively, when I did my last research about 2 weeks ago, closer to 80 billion naira. We need to find money, maybe to do it in phases. Look at the worst hit places. Edo Central, Edo North. But this thing about women waking up at 4 a.m. to go to the stream is archaic. It's 300 years old. And that's how many communities in Nigeria still live. But in Edo State, we're going to banish that way of living. We're not living like that again. We're not Stone Age people. If other people want to live like that, we're not living like that again. And then we have power capabilities in Edo State. We have the gas. Nigeria is the only country I know that has no power and flares gas. I just don't understand how we think sometimes. You have no power, yet you flare gas. Okay, don't let me talk about that one because, I really get very passionate when I look at how some things have evolved in this country. Who in their right minds has a policy where you flare gas, where you have no power? Anyway, in Edo State today, we have Oshoma, we have Asura, and we can create other mini plants in the senatorial districts. What we know is that working with that and working with solar, we will do our best to bring power to everybody. Because if you don't have power, you cannot develop. If you don't have power, you cannot produce. Your cost of production will be totally off the whack. So we must find a way to bring power to our people. What has developed other worlds is small and medium-sized industries. And power is what they use in great quantity. If you don't have power, our small and medium-scale industries will not develop. And those are the industries that grow to become the big companies of the world. Microsoft started in a garage. All the big companies of the world started in garages or in tiny places, tiny cubicles, somebody's bedroom, somebody's sitting room. But they were helped along by little things. They took power for granted. They took financing for granted. And they grew. So we must remove poverty from our people. We must do our agricultural produce in a way that removes poverty from our rural people. So people have the option of where they want to live. So very quickly, we must put money in our people's pocket. This one that people can't eat, people will eat by God's grace. Every day, 3 square meals. Such that somebody giving me 20,000 naira bribe cannot change what I think is right. There are people who are sitting down thinking, what they need to do on election days to bring 20,000 naira, and they get people to vote against what they know is wrong, what they know is right, and vote for wrong. But if someone doesn't eat for 4 days, 20,000 naira is plenty money. So when people have pauperized you, and they now use it as a weapon against you, you must fear them. They pauperized you so much, your ability to think has been thrown in the dustbin. You must fear them. And you must know they mean no good for you at all. And they can never mean any good for you. Period. But it's difficult for the person that hasn't eaten for 3 days to rationalize all this big English I'm talking about. It's difficult. So we must be able to assure them that they will eat every day. And that not that they will eat every day, they will not be walking to the stream every day. They will see water to drink, good water that will not give them typhoid or cholera. That's when they can then start rationalizing lightness and dark. All this thing I'm talking, all this big English I'm talking. That's when they can rationalize it. But if you haven't eaten even if many people I know here have friends here, I can see them. If they haven't eaten for 6 hours, they can't think again. So imagine someone that hasn't eaten for 3 days. That is why those who just want to grab our resources for themselves the way they've always done keep on pauperizing us and using it as a weapon. and we will not let it continue again. It's done. We will give our people the capability to make up their minds. It's not because they are hungry that they are taking the wrong decision, that they know is inimical to their interest, that they know for the next 4 years they will suffer. But because the hunger of today is so much, they don't care and they don't worry about the next 4 years. That must stop. And that is what we will stop. And that is what we want to stop. And that is what we need your help to stop. Economic growth. I can talk about this from now till tomorrow. But if you do a soil audit, which we will do in Edo State, from the north of Edo to Edo State by the banks of River Niger, you can grow nearly anything. Nearly anything. So we're rich in soil, we're rich in resources. My timers. He says I have 5 minutes or something. So I'll try and get along. We're rich in soil, we're rich in resources. Luckily, there's the Edo State Oil Palm Program that has hammered. Has moved Edo State to number 2, or it has moved Edo State to number 1 in Nigeria, which has moved Nigeria back to number 2 in the world in palm produce. And truly, palm and rubber are major foreign exchange earners. Those of you here, and I see some of you investment bankers and stockbrokers here, probably the 2 best performing stocks on the Nigerian Stock Exchange today are Presco and Okomu, because they're exporting rubber, they're exporting palm oil. So, people are not saying it. If you want to be rich quickly, go and take the patience to set up a palm plantation. Don't look for oil license, forget that crap. Go and get go and start a palm estate, a rubber estate. That's how you get rich quick, working hard. And so from the north to the south, from the east to the west in Edo State, we have the capability to plant any maize, cashew nuts, cassava. There's some group of cassava millionaires that are coming up in Edo State. They're not confessing. Maybe they don't want the taxman to run after them. But we're creating a bunch of cassava millionaires because we have 2 ethanol plants have established. The 3rd, which is going to be the biggest in West Africa, is about to be established. So, and ethanol uses cassava primarily. So we won't be able to find Gary to eat in Benin again soon. All cassava will go towards it, and those guys are quickly becoming millionaires. But they are not letting us know. Everybody is complaining. But the millionaires from cassava, the millionaires from oil palm, the millionaires from rubber, the millionaires from cashew nuts, they're not speaking up. And then, what about cocoa? Onwa, Akoko Edo, cocoa belts, richer than Ondo State. We haven't even tapped it. What we will do, we'll set up these 3 economic development zones in each senatorial district, 1 each, that will determine the comparative advantage of our economies. And we will play on these comparative advantages. We must. And one of the other things we haven't even talked about, part of our campaign, I ran into Ilushi. Ilushi, River Niger from Ilushi to Agenebode, right by us. And we haven't used River Niger. Is it irrigation? Is it electricity? Is it moving goods? We haven't even done the study. So that's an aspect of our economy that we haven't even looked at. I've talked about tourism, I've talked about diaspora visitation, what about manufacturing? And then I went to MOE the other day. And as something was smelling as I was driving in. And I really couldn't put my finger on what was smelling. You know what it was? Rotten pineapple. MOE produces the sweetest pineapple, I don't know, I nearly say in the world, but that may be an exaggeration because I haven't tasted every pineapple in the world. But MOE pineapple is But then 3/4 of the pineapple rots away. First of all, no road to get to the market. First of all, no market to take the pineapple. So imagine having a fruit canning factory in that belt. Food processing, fruit canning. fruit extraction in that belt. You know, the potentialities in our state are humongous. And we haven't started tapping it. What about the mineral resources in Edo North? We just have a few people coming to do moonlight. They just fly in, steal our mineral resources and run out. When we can order the process and earn massive resources, royalties from this process. And I can go on and on. And before I leave here, what about Benin Port? Today, all the approvals are in place. We've chosen the contractor. The state is just looking for the money to kickstart and complete the project. If that project goes on, $10 billion comes into our economy. Imagine the possibility of a port that has access to every part of Nigeria. And you don't have to, and the complications of Apapa and Tinkan are not there. Guys, we don't know what we're sitting on in those states. We really don't know what we're sitting on. Can we go to the next slide? I have 3 more minutes. I'll say this in one word: good governance. Osarodion and myself continue making this pledge and this promise. We will run a transparent, accountable, open, and accessible government. Period. And apart from making you all proud and redeeming our promise to you all, to find money to do the things we want to do, the people that will give us money at no interest or at low interest are people that we trust that we will run a good government. Those of you that run companies know that if you are running your company well, the bank will lend you plenty of money at low interest rates. If you are not running your company well, they probably won't lend you, or they will lend you at a very high interest rate. So there are many companies that have gone to the capital market to raise. Those that are raising faster are the well-run companies. It's simple. If your company is well-run, the market will determine for you. If your company is not well-run, the market will punish you. If your state is well-run, the market will work with you. If your state is not well-run, the market will punish you. If we want to do all the things we say we want to do in Edo State, we must run an accountable government, period. So that the market will work with us. We will continue to pay good wages because we will run a tight and lean government. So we will be able to pay wages. We must encourage, people must have a living wage, a take-home pay. There's no need to just say you are paid, but the pay doesn't take you home. It doesn't make sense. Your wife will look at you in the morning and say you go empty, you come back empty. You will feel less than a man or feel less than a woman. That's not the kind of society we want to create. It can't be. So we'll make sure we create an environment where people's take-home pay takes them home. Period. Where when you see your child coming, you're not afraid. Because your child is coming to ask for money for books, you're not afraid. Where those who have cars, when they hear noise in their cars, they're not afraid. We must create an environment where people are happy and people live well. We'll continue with the digitalization and e-governance structures so that we continue to bring down the cost of running the state. But we're going to run a great state. Next slide, please. Finally, and my word on this is simple. The world has been badly degraded. Sooner or later, maybe it's carbon dioxide that human beings will be breathing. Because the way the world is going. So, we'll create an environment where our children's children will be able to live well. We'll plant at least 500,000 trees every year. For each one tree you cut, you plant 3. You know, Edo State is the timber capital of the world. And we must resuscitate that capability for being the timber capital. But we must replace it. You cut 1 tree, you replace with 3. The other day, I went to look at the forest area. And I thought I was looking at a real forest. I walked 30 kilometers into the forest, and the whole place was empty. People left the outer ring to give all of us the impression that the forest was there. But they had cut all the trees. Not acceptable. Our mangrove areas, we have to improve those areas because that's the greatest degradation point and that has the greatest impact. And you know, the world today will not lend you money easily if you are not complying. you won't get money. If you are complying with ensuring the environment stays good and improves, you get money easier. You get all these bonds and things that you see for being able to support the environment. So it's even in our own interest to run a first world environment that takes care of bio issues, that considers degradation, and we'll do it. Plant trees. Edo State used to be one of the cleanest places in the world. Used to be. A long time ago. Today we see, I didn't see rats on Edo State streets. I thought rats were for streets in other places. But today we see rats on our streets. So our towns, Benin, Uromi, Agenebode, Auchi, Igara, Ovia areas. And I know why I mentioned Ovia because I'm looking at the majority leaders from those parts. Those parts must be clean. I must find a way to turn waste into energy. I thank you guys for listening. Next slide. What we can, and I want to repeat this, and Ms. Soge is here and she will transmit it to her husband and she will reaffirm it. What we promise each and every one of you in this room and every Edo State citizen is that you need to vote for us to get into government to do the things we want to do. Whether some people say we're speaking English, or we're speaking broken, or we're speaking vernacular, we will deliver. Our track record, and what we have done with our lives today suggests that we can and we will deliver. If you want to know what a woman or man will do tomorrow, look at what they did yesterday. It's simple. You know, this thing is not magic. People wake up one day and just land from the skies and say, okay, don't worry about what I did yesterday, tomorrow will be good. How can? How many of you here want to employ, particularly women? How many want to employ a nanny for your daughter and not check her out well? Where did you work before? What did you do before? What are the circumstances of living where you worked before? Let me take your guarantor so I can check. Or you want to employ a driver and you test him with your car, the first thing he does, he hits your gate. Or you employ a cook, the first meal he cooks, your stomach runs. And then you say that's the person you want to drive you? That's even more than error. We do not, the only job in this country that we do not test people for, that we do not ask people to put down their credentials, is when they say they want to be president or when they want to be governor. We say it doesn't matter, that you can bring electricity bill and that's enough for your certificate. How? If you don't how do we people of Nigeria, okay, if the others want to accept it, how do we people of Edo State want to accept that? That somebody comes at age 38 with failed school search results, and that is the person you want to be your leader? Because the person has put 4 boreholes somewhere? Come on, guys, let's get serious. And then somebody else stands on a podium and lies through his teeth, regardless his age. And we think that we should believe. He says, I don't have a house. He came to my house when my father died.
Liars.
He was there and he spoke at my father's funeral, eulogizing my family. And he came and stayed in my house. When his own wife died, he and some of his guests stayed in my house. Some of his guests.
He lied.
So he stands up, and when people say things like that because of desperation for power, we know there's a problem.
Reject them.
I just need to, because I have promised myself I will stay on issues. And I will not let anybody make me derail. But people must respect themselves, regardless their ages. We have been brought up to value people, respect ages, whether they're older than you or younger than you, and I stay on that. But people cannot lie through their teeth and expect that people. How do you take a bloody liar seriously?
How?
And how do you take what a bloody liar stands for seriously? I rest my case.